Well, it is one of the most talked about subjects among parents, right? Has your baby slept through the night? How's your baby sleeping? How are you sleeping? Well, that's just one issue when it comes to sleep in children. Dr. Scott Cyrus is back with us this morning to share more. Dr. Cyrus, good morning.
Good morning.
So some lighter and heavier topics. We'll start off heavy and then kind of lighten it up. Of course, we want to talk, approximately 3,500 sleep-related deaths every year with infants. Starting off with the heavy topic, what are some things that parents can do to keep their child safe while they're sleeping, especially babies?
Well, I tell you, one of the biggest issues that we see, of course, we don't like to see any death from a sleep environment. We have to realize that a lot of the sleep environment is not just from the bed. It can actually be from the couch, the chair. People will hold the baby and then they'll fall asleep and they'll roll the baby into them and they actually can suffocate the baby. So our whole idea of sleep, our whole idea of a safe sleep is to make sure that during nap time, during bedtime, they have their own space, and they basically have an idea that there's just nothing in the bed, as you can see here. There's just a sheet, just a crib mattress. Don't be sure that you buy a crib mattress that fits tight in the crib. Make sure that so there's no gaps where the baby can roll into. I had a baby who rolled. They were sharing a bed. They rolled into the wall, between the bed and the wall, and they got trapped. And the outcome was it was terrible. And so we really want to make sure that there is no toys, thick blankets, pillows, anything in the bed except the baby. They can be swaddled with either a little with a blanket or some device that keeps obviously things away from the head. So it's extremely important not to bed share. I know a lot of parents want to do that. They can, I say bed share. It can be couch share. It can be chair share. It can be any way. They need their own space.
And I want to ask you about, we saw that baby there swaddling. So if we're talking about, okay, I want to make sure my baby's warm. Are we putting little hats on babies? Are we doing the swaddling? You recommend that?
Yes.
Any tips for swaddling? It's always so hard.
It is. Well, I always like to do the blanket in a kind of a triangle shape. Bring the one edge down, lay the baby's head well outside the blanket, take the arm, bring it down, and I just tuck it in over here, and I kind of give it a little tug. So they're kind of, they roll it kind of tight. Bring it in from the foot, so we start from one side, and then we roll it around. And we call it the baby burrito.
Yeah. Well, but that's a lot of parents are like, hey, well, right. I want some stuff in the crib with my baby because they might get cold.
Right.
And what would you say to that? It's like, well, the baby's going to be cold.
The baby, many times parents will to room temperature. They'll take the room temperature up to maybe 78, 80 degrees. Really, it's recommended just to keep it room temperature that's comfortable to you. One. Number two, use a receiving blanket if you feel like they're going to be too cold. The head is about 1/3 the size of the baby, whereas in adults it's about the 1/10 the size. So we lose a lot of heat from the head. So keeping a cap on the baby's head is a very good idea, and that keeps the baby extremely comfortable, warm, just at the right temperature, because you don't want to overheat the baby either.
Let's talk about sleep expectations in terms of, let's just talk about some numbers. So how much sleep should a baby be getting, naps included?
Well, believe it or not, around 16, maybe 18 hours a day initially. Babies, I always say they sleep, excuse me, they sleep, eat, and poop. That's about the only thing they do about very early on.
I can attest to that.
That's right. As a father of 5, so can I. And so, sleeping in 3 to 4 hour segments, they wake up, they eat, because they're going to be eating about every 2 to 4 hours. And then the idea is they're going to be right back to sleep. Sleep is extremely important to growth and maturity, and the maturity of their muscles, their bones, their brain is growing at an extremely rapid rate at this point in time. And so it's extremely important to understand that keeping the baby's environment as quiet as possible. You don't have to be just over the top, but yes, try to keep the baby's environment quiet and make sure that they get that amount of sleep, because it is extremely important to them.
You know, we have a little bit of time, maybe too big of a subject, but just kind of talk about how you would generally approach a difficult conversation with a parent who maybe does want to sleep share or say, well, hey, I really want to be with my baby. I don't want to put them in a different room. How do you kind of approach the difficult conversations?
Well, you know, and that's really actually a very common conversation, because obviously the mother and the father are both typically very concerned about the baby's well-being. They want to make sure there is no problem. If there is a choking problem, if there is a situation where they're concerned, that they're really nearby. So a bassinet right beside the bed is really a kind of nice medium way to do that, and that is to be able to have the baby near you, but they have their own space. Again, no, just a flat mattress with a sheet, no pillows, no stuffed toys, no thick blankets. You know, some people use a pacifier and they have this string on it, and that can actually fall across the throat and could cause a choking episode if they actually had a, you know, if they rolled over or something like that. 'Cause some babies will scrunch up and they'll roll over and such. So be careful that you really have that environment to themselves, but the baby can be right there beside mom. It makes it easy for mom to feed, but then put the baby right back in the crib.
Well, Dr. Cyrus, as always, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.